The Jacksonville Jaguars are 0-2 through the first 2 weeks of the season, and Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked good, but nobody's talking about it for whatever reason. And Trevor Lawrence, he's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. I've been a fan of him since he was at Clemson, and he's just struggled this season, and it doesn't make any sense that it's not being talked about. You go to week one against the Dolphins, they were up 14, they were up 17-3 in this game. They end up losing 20-17, and it was just a bad choke by the entire team. Trevor Lawrence does have some blame in it. But that was a whole team effort choke. Week one, he was 12 of 21, had 162 yards, had one touchdown. He took care of the ball, didn't fumble, but he did take 3 sacks, which that's not a lot. But he lost 23 yards taking those 3 sacks, and that definitely hurt the team in the end. But Trevor's, and then you go to week two, they lose 18-13 against the Browns. And the Dolphins game, I predicted the Dolphins to win that, but if you're up 2 touchdowns, you need to hold on to that lead, and they weren't able to do that in week one. Then you get to week two where they're playing the Cleveland Browns. I thought the Jaguars would have won this game, especially coming off the loss they just took, blowing the lead. So like this was a game they should have came out, showed, been way more aggressive than what they were. Trevor Lawrence, he was 14 of 30, so they were more aggressive with the passing game. But his completion percentage went down from 57% in week one to 46% in week two. But he had 220 yards this game. Didn't have a touchdown, but he did have a fumble, and he took 4 sacks, lost 24 yards. So so in the second game of the season, he got a single touchdown, but you lose some yards from a few sacks, and you have a fumble. So you already had, that was his first turnover of the season. But that's like, it just doesn't look good in Jacksonville. Like, I don't know if it's Trevor Lawrence or if it's the receivers that he has, but this team really should be 2-0. Like, and you have a solid team. You have Travis Etienne, you have Gabe Davis, who you just signed, Brian Thomas, rookie receiver. I think he'll be good. You got Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram only played one game, but this is a solid team, so they definitely should be 1-1 right now, and they need to start winning some games, because I've heard people say Trevor Lawrence is a top 10 quarterback. Not everybody would, like, I wouldn't agree with that statement. I think he's a top 15 quarterback, but he got to start getting some wins. This team, they could be competitive in the AFC, and they could be a potential wild card team. But if they're playing like this and Trevor Lawrence is stepping up, then they won't get anywhere, because it starts with Trevor Lawrence. It always starts with the quarterback. Then if he's not doing nothing, it's going to be much harder for them to do anything. Maybe they need to take an approach like the Chargers are doing. The Chargers have established a run game with J.K. Dobbins, and Justin Herbert looks great so far this season. The Jaguars have a great running back in Travis Etienne. Maybe you try to establish more of a run game, because Travis Etienne, he's looked good through 2 weeks. He did have a fumble, but aside from that, he's looked good. But this Jacksonville team, they shouldn't be 0-2 in that game against the Browns. Both of their games were embarrassing, but for different reasons. The offense couldn't do anything against the Browns. That game was just ugly. Then the first game, you blew a lead to the Dolphins in a game that you should have won, because they honestly played better than the Dolphins in week one. But Trevor Lawrence, he needs to step it up. He can't continue to keep. He's been underperforming this season. He needs at least 2 touchdowns and 200 yards every game for them to be able to win. Man, 2 touchdowns, 230 yards, that's what it needs to be averaging for this team for them to win. But yeah, that's it for this video. I feel like Trevor Lawrence, for him to be in the conversation for a top 10, top 15 quarterback, he needs to be talked about more. His struggles need to be talked about more. Obviously, the guys like Lamar, Dak, they get talked about a lot. Obviously, Lamar, because he's won an MVP twice, so obviously he's going to get the media attention. But Dak Prescott, even he's known as a notorious playoff choker, but he's still in the conversation for a top 10 quarterback because of how good he is in the regular season. And when he's struggling, it's always talked about. Joe Burrow, I noticed he's getting talked about more now, especially with the Bengals being 0-2. But the Jaguars, they play the Bills on Monday, and they need this win. I don't think they'll get it. I think the Jaguars start 0-3, and then that'll be it for that season. Because I think you start 0-3 in the AFC, your chances of making the playoffs are much harder. But leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you think about Trevor Lawrence and how he's been performing this season so far.